this is the most exciting part and an awesome panel session. We are going to be, talking about gaining employment, which is something that is very specific to everybody. Everybody has been, you have been at a point where you're looking for a job or you're in a hiring phase. So this is an interesting panel, so please do take notes because we have awesome panelists. So I would love to call on the first panelist, Hannah Olukoye. And please keep clap, like Hannah is a Google dev expert, she's a Google developer expert for Android. So, Hannah. Yeah, thank you. Next. Yeah. So our next panelist is Splendid Uche. Please clap. Splendid is the founder of Growth X Splendid, and she's looking very sweet. So our next panelist is Yanmo Omorogbe. And our last panelist for this session is Ayobami Ayoade, sorry. And Ayobami Ayoade is the talent acquisition specialist at Bitmama. So please clap, give a round of applause for her. All right, welcome ladies. It's so lovely to meet you all. And my name is Ruth Ikegha. I know Olamide did an introduction, but I'm Ruth Ikegha and I'm an open source advocate. So let's get started for the panel because I am also really excited to, moderate this panel because I'm also in the hiring phase and I really love to learn a lot from you all. So we'll start with introductions first. I know I just said your names and yeah, I'd like to get to know you first. Anna.
Hi everyone. Thank you all for making time to come. As you said, my name is Hannah Olukoye. Very not Nigerian. I'm from Kenya.
Thanks for coming here all the way from Kenya. Please give her a round of applause.
So I've been a software engineer for Android for close to 8 years now. And then I'm transitioning into
That's awesome.
engineering management. So I'm an engineering manager for 3 months now at a company in Berlin. And yeah, I'll be giving a few hints on how to get better at that.
Sure, thank you, Hannah.
Hi everyone, my name is Splendid Uche. Before all this career talk, I think I'm just a very young girl that likes networking and traveling and just
That's not what is here. You have a lot of things.
First of all. Then secondly, I'm the founder of Growth X Splendid. And at Growth X Splendid, what basically is just like a space where we build community with attending an expert growth marketers in Africa. So what we do is we don't just just offer internship on trainings. We also get jobs for women, especially the finalists from these internships. And so far, pretty new, but we've done really good stuff. Then personally, I'm an acquisition specialist at Marat. I'm basically just 4 years experience doing a lot of marketing things I don't want to bore you on right now. But yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm Yanmo. I'm co-founder of Bamboo, and Bamboo is an app that allows you to invest in the US stock market and allows you also invest in other dollar-denominated products. Before I did that, I was a chemical engineer briefly. I worked in politics, in civil service briefly, and then I worked in private equity before I started Bamboo.
My name is Ayobami Ayoade. I work as a talent acquisition specialist at Bitmama. And what we do at Bitmama is we are a blockchain infrastructure company. Before I joined Bitmama, I was previously at Talent QL, and that was where I worked as a technical recruiter. So I do more recruiting for tech companies in Nigeria. I've worked with previous tech companies in Nigeria, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the awesome introductions. So we have, there's a code that is going to come up in case you have any questions to ask the panelists. Towards the end of the session, there will be some few minutes to ask questions. So please drop in your questions there and I'll read them out. So the next thing is, Hannah, I would love to know, how did you get into tech? You know, you've been here for so many years. How did you make the switch? What were you doing before? And how did you get into tech?
Okay, I'm like Yanmo. I started off as a actuarial scientist. I did actuarial science in campus, and for sure, the first year I knew this is not for me. And again, I have African parents, so there's no way I was gonna drop out. I went through the 4 years, graduated, and then went ahead now to take up programming courses. So I transitioned into tech as I was working as an intern. So like at that point, I always say that there's no point of being drastic and just quitting without knowing where I'm going. So I ended up going to tech communities, joining meetups, and just understanding in depth what exactly I was getting into. So that's how I transitioned. Started off as a web developer, worked as a deployment engineer. That was interesting. It was all new to me. And then right now, where I settled at home is mobile development for Android. And that's where I've been thriving all these years. So I think I've answered your question.
Yeah. You're a Google Dev expert as well.
So yeah, I got the title Google Developer Expert this year. My mentor is here, Moyin. So yeah, it's been really our journey, and right now, as I mentioned again, I'm also transitioning into engineering management, which is also pretty new, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Splendid. How did you get into tech, and what made the switch for you?
So I think my story is very funny because I studied architecture.
Wow.
Yeah, I spent like 5 years studying architecture. And then I came out and I had this friend that, just was doing a lot of things that I didn't understand how she was making that money that young, that much money. So like I just got interested, and she spoke to me about like HNG internship being like a very good way to start. Sorry?
So HNG internship?
Internship. So first thing I did was, she was talking about HNG a lot because she used to work at hotels NG. It was like, she made it seem like it was like heaven. So for me, I was just like, I really need to work here. So I sent Mark a DM on Twitter.
Yeah.
He never replied, but that's fine. But I ended up like leaving HNG as a good marketing manager. Mm-hmm. So I ended up working there actually.
Oh.
But yeah, so I got in as an intern, like at HNG. And then, it was a marketing intern role for acquisition. So I just felt like, I got in and I saw a lot of software developers making more money, and I'm like, I want to switch. So I've done everything doable. I've done UI design. I've done, I just realized that that's not actually my strength. Mm-hmm. And through that period of like discovering, I was able to like find my strength. And, I just got promoted really early, and that was like a very fast career push for me. So I think I'll just say it's, my journey has just mainly been through that internship, that one internship, and that one bigger step, yeah. So that's it from my end.
That's really awesome. And I really want people to take note that as like the panelists, they are sharing their story, you can see that they didn't have like a straight path, right? So please do take note of that as well. Thank you very much, Splendid. So Yanmo, even though you shared a lot to your keynote, we still want to hear more. So how did you get into tech? And what made the switch? Some people did not attend your keynote, so we'd still love to know more.
So I think I mentioned I worked at a private equity firm, so I worked in finance. And at the time, I wanted to invest, and I wanted to buy US stocks. And I had a Nigerian passport, and if you do have a Nigerian passport, doing the KYC is really hard. So none of the firms that allowed you buy US stocks wanted to allowed you on board Nigerians, and a lot of the Nigerian firms either had super high minimums or this time to invest was just really, really long. So at the time, I was friends with my co-founder, and I was complaining, I'm trying to buy stocks, I can't find a way to do it. And he was like, oh my God, me too, I'm trying to do it. And like he was like, worked in tech already, so I was like, oh, okay. But he was already trying to figure it out. So I was like, oh, that sounds great. Like, let me know when you figure it out. I would love to be your first user. Let me know how that goes. And I just stayed in touch. He would like send me like updates. Oh, this was going on. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Is the app almost ready? Are you guys cool? We'd go back and forth sending updates until one day he was like, oh, do you want to be my co-founder? And I was like, I have a job. And yeah, I mean, it took a while, not that long actually. It took about 2 weeks for me to decide, quit my job, and did it. So yeah, and that's how I sort of got it.
Awesome. Ayobami.
So while I was in uni, I studied statistics in university. So ideally, after school, just maybe do like data analyst or just like do something in tech. But then I was not really interested in tech. Funny enough. So I was like, I cannot do data analyst. This thing is really stressful. Let me just look for one chill job and then just do, right? So I was like, what's that chill job? I was like, okay, let me do like maybe executive assistant, because like I can help people plan anything. So let me just do that. So I kind of ventured into like HR, and then I started, I took a course, and then I was in HR in the energy sector for like maybe like a year or two, and then I started hearing tech. I'm like, okay, what is this tech thing? Let me just go into this tech. And I was now figuring like, okay, so how can I go into tech when I'm doing like human resource? Because the idea is once you're into tech, you have to maybe be coding, or maybe you have to be like, do something that you have to press your computer and like see different codes that you don't even understand, right? So I switched into tech as HR, but not really HR, because HR is really broad. So I just switched into the recruiting part in tech. So that is how I got into tech. And now I work as a technical recruiter. So all the coding thing that I was like avoiding that time, like I had to go back to it, because like that's the core of my job now. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really good. Great. Thank you. So the first question that I have for this panel is on recruiting. So how many persons are currently applying for jobs here? Can you, like, almost everybody. Okay. How many people have gotten a rejection mail before? Okay, great. And I can also relate to that as well. So the first question, I think I'll start with Ayobami, right? As a recruiter. You know, there are some times when you apply for a job and you go through the first phase, and maybe you know someone that is still applying for that same job, and then you end up dropping from, they send you a rejection mail, and then that person moves forward. So now we have like two people, right? So, and this panel session is focused on strategic positioning, how to position yourself to be a better candidate, right, for the job you want, or for that particular role you want. So I would love to know how can our ladies, right, how can our women, spot out those red flags in quotes, because then if the other person moved forward, right, and then the other person was dropped, there are some things that made that person, maybe the recruiter, maybe in this case you drop that person from the hiring process. So would you love to talk about these red flags, and also how our women, the WTM women, can strategically position themselves in a hiring process?
Okay, thank you, Ruth. So, okay, so one thing I want you to know is when you're applying for a job, have it at the back of your mind that you are applying alongside thousands of people. So once you have that in your mind, you know that, okay, I cannot flop from the onset. And the onset starts from your resume. It starts from the approach at which you would be getting the platform. When I mean approach by which you'll be getting the platform means what will get you in front of the recruiter. So if you got the job on the website, or if somebody says, oh, I saw this job, I think you should apply. Before you apply, you need to calm down and know that you don't just want to, because I mean, some people see jobs and they'll be like, oh, let me just apply. You need to calm down before you apply for a job. And when you're applying for a job, you need to tailor your application to that job. I will tell people that have more than one resume, because you can be at an outing and somebody will tell you, oh, there's this job opening, apply. Because you have just one resume and that your resume is not tailored to that job, you upload your resume and say, I've applied for a job, oh, I'm waiting for them to call me for interview. And you will not hear anything from the company or the recruiter. But maybe you'd apply for the job and then you got the call. Because you're not prepared for that application, You might get the first call, or you might get the email to say, oh, we received the application, we'd like to invite you for an interview. The other thing I would say you should do is, before you even go into an interview, make sure that you've done your research about the company. I've spoken to a lot of people, and some people just come on that call, they don't even know what the company is about, and then you now come and say, okay, so what do you guys do? Like, how are you coming to an interview that you don't even know what we do? So for you to stand out amongst thousands of other people, like I said, you need to tailor your application, you need to know about the company, you need to do personal research. LinkedIn is there. I know some people are really scared of this LinkedIn thing. I don't even understand. Once I open the app like this, the pressure is getting worse. Everybody. But then it's really, really useful. You can just like check under the company, see somebody, maybe your mutual connection that is in the company. Just ask questions. Go to the website. Go to the company social platform. There's no how you will not see something, because so I'll give an example. There was a time that I was hiring for a role, and then there were like 3 candidates that got to the final stage. And what actually, like she said, what made us drop the other 2 is because when they got to the interview, the 3 of them were really good, but I mean, we can't hire 3 people, we need to hire 1. What the guy did was that he had gone to the company website to like check their website, their UI, their everything. And then when he came on the call, he was like, thank you everybody on this call for moving me to this stage. We asked him some question, and while he was answering us, he was answering us based on the things that he has seen on the website. So he was already telling us like, oh, this and this is what we think we can do better, the colors, the way it will make user better. The other people just answered our questions. They didn't ask us questions, and they didn't respond to our question based on like the research that they've done. So ideally, what I would say is that for you to stand out among other people, you need to find that thing that would distinguish you. It could be your soft skill, it could be the way you even talk, but just find out that one thing that works for you, really. And it's all about research. Don't just apply because you want to apply. If not, you get...
Yeah. Thank you very much. I also love to know from you, Hannah, as well, since you're also like in the recruiting, talent recruiting as well. So what are those things, what are those potential red flags, and also what are things that we can do to strategically position ourselves?
For me, I was gonna give like a personal like experience, because transitioning into this role as engineering manager, it was actually through LinkedIn. And as she mentioned, sometimes you feel like you just want to apply with the same CV everywhere, just click and send the same CV and copy and paste, but that's not going to really work for you. How I know this is, there's a time in January, I just took an analysis of all the places I've applied to, drew a table and said, okay, this is the ones who've gotten back to me, these are the ones who've rejected me, these are the ones who just ghosted me. And the numbers were shocking. It was quite shocking. And I was like, okay, maybe now I need to change how I do this application. So I was able to do things about like my CV using keywords that are specific to that specific company or even that job title. And actually saw a difference within who was getting back to me, who was getting me through past the introductions phase of the interview, who I got to the last stage of the interview but didn't hear from them. Like, it was such a difference. So that's something I could also just highlight again. Like, be specific. I even have been giving talks in the past 3 DevFests about how to be better at soft skills as a techie. Some of my slides are online, you can just check them out. I am free to look at your CV if you want. I put in my email address there, just in case. You can reach out to me later, just if you need me to help you check your CV. That's something I've been really saying I'll help the community with, because sometimes you think your CV is good until you give it to someone who's actually on the other end, and they can be able to help you point out the things that you're missing. Yeah, it feels bad when they reject you at the very, very last stage, but it's also an experience. Like, think about it in terms of what can I take away from this whole interview experience for my next interview. So if you get to the last stage, yeah, it's okay to feel bad, but like, just make sure you pick out the learnings that will help you now get better at the next interviews. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So the Next question is to Yamo and Splendid. You know, being in the management and leadership position, right? So I would love to know, like, what are the qualities, right, that you need your company and your staff members to have? This question is kind of important because as prospective employees that are women are, they want to know what are those qualities you look for in your company staff or like the people you work with. So I'll get off with Splendid then, yeah.
This is like the most important part generally about employment. And that's why, like, even at Growth Explained It, like the first thing I focused on, right, is, you know, how do these people actually get jobs, right? And so, like, I would say that what I've noticed is when most people, like, even want to work for me or just work generally, there's no intentionality, in all honesty. So I would actually start with that one, being very intentional. And what I mean by intentionality is, for example, I've had internships at Growth Explained. It's completely free, right? And then you have like these free 6-week sessions of like very good people training you and all of that. And at the end of it, now we are pursuing you to give you jobs or something. And then even when there's like the first session or something, they don't just have anything arranged. There's no LinkedIn, there's no nothing arranged or something. So I'd say like being very intentional about how you put out all these things. What I mean is your profile, right, is the first thing I look out for. Before I make any employment generally, I like to even check if these people are on social media. I know you might not really be so, like when I say social media, I mean LinkedIn and Twitter, because those are like the main spaces for tech generally. So even though you're not like growing or something, I just even have 15 followers, but are you even actually just there or something? So I feel like putting out yourself is one thing I actually look out for majorly, yeah.
Thank you very much. Yanmo.
So for me, it really boils down to one question: at whatever level you are, whatever piece of work someone gives you to do you do it? And can they leave you and trust that the work that they've given you to do, you've done it properly? So I remember someone said it once that their old boss, before they handed in a piece of work, he'd be like, before he looked at it or opened it, he would ask, is it perfect? And the first couple of times they would pause, and it terrifies you. You're like, let me go back and check again. And then you come back. But I think that's literally the mindset to have, whether you're an intern, whether, obviously it matters more as you go up to management level and like exec level, but is that answer to that question, whatever piece of work you're doing, are you striving for perfection? Because I think fundamentally that's what any quote unquote, that's what any boss wants or any manager. You want to trust that the people you've given work to, that when you've given them work, whatever piece of work that they've done, that they're giving it back to you to the highest standard possible, so that you have to check it a little, so that you don't have to check it as much, fundamentally. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing, that sort of initiative and that sort of, you know, we call it Abambo, we call it corporate adulting. That whole thing that, look, everyone here is an adult. All of us want to be doing this job. That's why I talk a lot about caring about what you do. Because I think when you care about what you do, it actually shows. But yeah, caring about what you do and caring about the quality of work that you do, right? And yeah, that's the most important thing.
Thank you very much. Because of the time, we have to cut this short, but it was, I know there were some questions, but I'm sure the speakers are open for networking. You know, you can ask them your questions, but I would just love to drop a word of encouragement to people that are applying and looking for jobs at this moment. I know that there's the whole tech winter, there's something they call it, right? The layoffs and everything. But keep applying these tips that our panelists have shared today. There are people that are still getting jobs, right? Even with layoffs, right? So please keep applying and keep applying these tips. And please do network with the speakers or the panelists, and they would answer your questions. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.